everyone, I'm Goldie, Teenager's Life Coach. Today I want to speak about a subject which actually ties in very well with the dates that we're approaching. So Christmas, New Year's, with in some cases the Epiphany, which we call Reyes in Spain. These are all festivals which are coming up and we will be celebrating them. But in that celebration, one must ask themselves, does everybody celebrate them to the same degree, with the same effect, in the same manner? This is what distinguishes one culture with another, correct? And of course, because we live in a world where multiculturalism is so big and so important, a parent might wonder how much influence does their own ethnicity, their own ways of bringing up their children, their cultural differences, how does this shape their growth and their development? It's an interesting question, to be honest, and that's exactly what I'm going to be speaking about today. It's important to realize that although when you are a teenager you are affected by a multitude of things, including puberty, the recognition of acceptance amongst your peers, and just discovering yourself, a large part of who you are and what your identity comprises of is heavily influenced by the culture that you come from. And because we are surrounded by so many different cultures, it's so enriching to be in the world today and live amongst so many different races. Does this confuse, or does this perhaps invite the child to be in a better place? Well, this is then a conversation which I think would be very nice for you to have at this time of year with your children, whilst you're having Christmas dinner or lunch with them, and ask them in what way do they sometimes feel perhaps in conflict in making certain choices based on what they're living and breathing at home compared to what their peers are bringing to them in the classrooms. Because let's face it, they are actually exposed to the same amount of hours with them as they are with you, if not more with them. So the first point that I would like to discuss, which is subtle but extremely important, is this idea of independence versus dependence. In the West, we see a lot of children, teenagers taking up part-time jobs. This could be primarily to bring some extra income, so pocket money, or it could even contribute towards the costing, the funding of something that they're a part of. And parents encourage these part-time jobs to give them the independence, the feeling of a little bit of authority, and at the same time they are able to contribute from an early age towards the finances in the home. On the other hand, in the East, we see a lot less of this, because there's a primary core belief that parents feel that they must be the primary caregiver and financial shoulder bearer for their children up until university, and so therefore it's frowned upon almost to get a part-time job. One or the other is not wrong. They're both right in their own places. At the end of the day, as I said, it's a cultural difference. So this is something you may want to consider if you have to face a situation of this kind in your own home and you come from an Eastern belief. Are you willing to allow your child to take up that part-time job because you're living in the West now? The second point that I want to talk about are moral differences. So honesty in the West is very much valued. It's frowned upon to say a lie. Parents especially inculcate in their children to be honest at all times. It's so much so that they even have classes in schools where they speak about this morality and telling the truth. In the East, however, it's not that you are frowned upon for being honest, but there's a lot more weight and value given on keeping harmony among social and family situations. And if that is at the cost of a small white lie, then it's absolutely acceptable. So you may find that sometimes you may have to just say a white lie in order to not hurt the feelings of a person in your family or in your social circle. This happens a lot in the East, whereas in the West, you will quite often find the person having an assertive conversation, and this could be frowned upon by a completely different person that doesn't belong to the West. So again, our children are facing such situations, and more than you can imagine, where they may feel that they can't speak up because they haven't been brought up like that. However, the other child who's in front of them will be open and explicit about what they feel, and they will not be dishonest about how they want to tell you how they feel. So again, that's another point to think about. The third one is the effects on the ego. Now, again, depending on where you come from, you choose to be more proud or you choose to be more humble. There is also this fine line between one or the other makes you more respectful. So if you don't speak up and you're a little bit more subdued, you are respecting the other person. Whereas if you are proud about who you are and you're vocalizing your accomplishments, then you are also being respectful towards yourself. But the other person may see you as arrogant or timid if you choose to not speak up. So again, you can see both have a lot of value. They're both right. Latin and Hispanic cultures emphasize a lot on a strong-willed individual, and they're a lot more explicit and vocal, and they use specific adjectives to explain what they want to say, whereas maybe the Japanese culture is more subdued, and they de-emphasize on pride and wanting to laud what they have achieved. Now again, if you are in a room with one or the other, there will be a moment where there might be a conflict. So is your child facing a situation like this? Do they have a friend where maybe they spend time with and they are not able to understand each other because of these small cultural differences? So, again, I invite you to talk to them about it this holiday. And the final point that I want to mention is this importance that we must give on feeling culturally confused. As I said at the beginning of the talk, well, it's a time of your life when you're trying to discover who you truly are and where you belong and what marks you apart from everyone else. But quite often, your own cultural differences may be within the minority. So if you don't come from a mainstream culture and you are in a country where you are there's a higher tendency to find a completely different culture, then you have to sort of validate that as a parent and have this conversation with your child to just see in what ways can you help them, in what ways can flexible changes be made. It's all about adaptation, isn't it? So if you try and put yourself in the shoes when you first stepped into the country that many years ago, I'm sure you had the same hurdles to cross, the same obstacles, probably a lot more than your child. But don't forget that your children are also mini versions of you, so they are imbibing and they are sponging off on what you are teaching them at home. So when they are out in the open, in the exposed world, you have a very important influence on their social development, but they are also equally exposed to their peers, and those peers will give them as much, if not more, influence on who they want to be. So on that note, I want to wish you all a very happy Christmas, and I hope you enjoyed today's talk. Please like, share, comment, and send me a message if you'd like to ask me something else. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.